Thomas Savidge is a research fellow at the American Institute for Economic Research joining us now. And Pete Sepp is president of the National Taxpayers Union. Happy Friday to both of you. Thanks so much for coming on. So President Trump calls the man on your screen too late, and he has left the rates where they are. Pete, I'll start with you. Thoughts on that?
Well, presidents will always criticize the Fed for moving too slowly or too quickly, depending on the policy. Oh. I think the president would be best advised to not give the Fed any policy excuses to stand pat going forward. You can do two things. The Liberation Day reciprocal tariffs, those have been suspended pending agreements being reached with a lot of countries. The so-called deadline for reaching those agreements is July 9. Now, markets are going to have a pretty bad reaction if the reciprocal tariffs actually go into effect. The president could announce we're not going to do that. I think that would be a helpful signal to those worried about inflation at the Fed. Same with tax policy. If we keep moving forward, the president and Congress, toward extending the 2017 tax relief, I think that will send another signal to the Fed that, look, we're trying to get our act together.
Sure.
The Fed needs to do the same.
That and the one big beautiful bill, again, still has yet to pass the Senate and then back to the House, so there's some time on that. The goal is July 4th. The president may expect it by August. Talking about the president, Thomas, he reacted on Truth Social, and again, calling too late Jerome Powell is costing our country hundreds of billions of dollars. He is truly one of the dumbest and most destructive people in government, and the Fed board is complicit. Europe has had 10 cuts. We have had none. We should be 2.5 points lower and save billions on all of Biden's short-term debt. We have low inflation. Too late's an American disgrace. What is it, Thomas, that you believe that President Trump is seeing that maybe Fed Chair Jerome Powell is not? Remember, the president wants those rates to be cut, and he's citing the reason for it, but the Fed Chair doesn't see it that way. Where is this gray area, or what is in this gray area?
Well, that's a great question, Sean. One of the, it seemed with Powell's speech yesterday, he highlighted three key themes. Inflation, as Pete mentioned, is still above what they would desire, and it's still above that 2% target. There is a lot of uncertainty still from those tariffs and from those the pending trade deals, and that's clouding future outlook, which is why the Fed officials are still pretty hesitant. And then on top of that, the broader economy seems strong enough to give the Fed some room to wait a little bit on those rate cuts. And again, that kind of belies the problem there, where President Trump is seeing, focusing on a lot of what's going on in the world, and he's seeing those reactions. The Fed Chair, Powell, and the Federal Reserve Board, they're seeing, they're looking at the data themselves, and what we saw in that speech yesterday is that the Fed seems to be shifting from that extraordinary forward guidance and focusing instead on a more data-driven approach, more wait and see because of the uncertainty in so many aspects of the economy. But ultimately, the gray area problem is the discretion, both on part of the White House and on part of the Fed. With that discretion, you could have political pressure applied to monetary policy. You could allow the Fed to engage in mission creep. Whereas if the Federal Reserve just stuck to one simple rule, control the monetary supply, you'd get greater predictability, and with predictability comes stability.
All right. Great point. We'll wrap it there. Thomas Savidge joining us, as well as Pete Sepp. Good to see you both, gentlemen. Thank you.
My pleasure.